Good morning. Today we're going to work at the driving question, how do I multiply by large and small powers of 10? So that's numbers that end in a 0, or if they're very small numbers, we'll have a 0, or they'll be decimal numbers. So we're going to start off with a little bit of fluency work. So this is stuff that is connected to our work, but not necessarily directly. So I'd like you to work through those 4 questions, please. You've got a little bit of shape and space to do because you have to work out what certain shapes are, calculate their areas, then work with that place value table, then some multiplications, and then some long multiplications. So what I'd like you to do now, please, is pause this lesson and return when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so working our way through this, the first shape is a rectangle and has an area of 54. The second shape is a triangle, and this one does not have an area of 54, even though you've got 9 by 6. Remember, you multiply the base times the height and then divide by 2. So that will have an area of 27 square centimeters. And finally, we have a parallelogram, which again is base times height, and that too will have an area of 54 square centimeters. I hope we all did okay with that one. So now my next question, I've produced my own copy of the place value table, including the questions. The questions, I'm sorry, are a little bit difficult to read, but we'll go through this quickly. A is 1/10. B, which is 1 divided by 100, is 0.01. C, which is 1 divided by 10 divided by 10, is 0.01. Again, so dividing by 10 and dividing by 100 is much the same. The next one is 1 divided by 10 divided by 100. Well, that's going to, so 1 divided by 10 will get you to here, then divided by 100 is another 2 places, which will get you to 1,000th. This is the 1,000th column. 34 divided by 10 is 3.4. 623 divided by 100 is 6.23. And 3,461 divided by 1,000 is 3.461. Question 3. 0.1 times 6 is 0.6. 0.4 times 6 is 2.4. 0.4 times 0.6 is 0.24. And 0.4 times 1.2 is 0.4 times 0.12 is 0.48. Now, I'm not going to go through these questions if you didn't get them correct this time, because we're going to be reviewing how we sort this out a little bit later in the lesson. If you got them all correct, you're off to a really positive start to the day. If you didn't, well, we'll be getting there a bit later. Okay, then some multiplications. I just ask you to work your way through the answers. Obviously, multiplying by 3. First, you just work your way across in the style that you've done before. In this one, I've multiplied 53 by 8 and then 53 by 20 down here, added them together. 32 times 87, I've done the same. First, I've multiplied by 7. Then I've multiplied by 80 by writing down a note and multiplying by 8 to give me this answer. And then finally, 267 times 15 multiplied by 5, then multiplied by 10 and added the numbers together. I hope no one used a calculator for these, because you should all be more than capable of getting those right by yourselves. Okay, if you need to do any corrections now, I suggest you pause the video or pause the lesson and return back when you've finished. Okay, so the next part of the lesson is where we start our work for the day. Copy and complete these patterns. So we've got some number patterns that we should be able to work out what each one is. So when you're ready to start, pause the lesson and return back to it when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so obviously 29 times 10, the way we multiply a number by 10 is we move the numbers one place to the left and add a 0 to fill in the ones column that now is empty. And then 29 times 1 is obviously 29. Now what we should notice this time is we've got almost like a diagonal slope of numbers, because for the next one we're multiplying by 0.1. Well, if we look, we've got a pattern here. 290 is 10 times 29. So the next one, we want a number that is 10 times smaller than 29, because our numbers are going down by, we're effectively dividing by 10 here. To go from here to here, we divide by 10. So obviously, because we've got a pattern going, we're going to divide by 10 here, and that will give me 2.9. I'll divide that by 10 to give me 29 times 0.01. And again, I divide this one by 10. So each time I go down, I'm effectively dividing by 10. The same pattern holds good in my next number pattern, the 107. I'm still doing it. If you look at the numbers, effectively I'm dividing by 10 each time. They're getting 10 times smaller. So we've got the same pattern again. 1070, 107, 10.7, 1.07. So what division calculation is the same as 29 times 0.1? Well, 29 times 0.1 is the same as 29 divided by 10, because the answer is 2.9. The answer is 2.9. What calculation is the same as 107 times 0.01? Well, 107 times 0.01 gives me an answer of 1.07, and that is the same as 107 divided by 100. So you should be able to see now there's a little bit of a pattern going on, a similarity that perhaps we'll use later to look at what happens when we multiply by powers of 10 and divide by small powers of 10. There's a little bit of similarity going on there. Okay, if you need to write any corrections, pause the lesson now and catch up when you're ready. So next up, we've got some multiplications to do by small powers of 10. Just think about what we've been doing and what we've just discussed, and look back at your previous work and we should be okay with these. So when you're ready, pause the lesson and come back to me when you're ready to continue. Okay, so as we said earlier on, just above here, multiplying by 0.1 is the same as dividing by 10. So 8.6 multiplied by 0.11 is 0.86. 11.6 multiplied by 0.1 is 1.16. 0.53 multiplied by 0.1 is 0.053. In each case, I've moved the numbers one place to the right, sorry. When I move on to multiply by 0.01, I have to move the numbers 2 places to the right. So 36.21 becomes, 3,621 becomes 36.21. 4,568 becomes 45.68. 88.6 becomes 0.886. 11.6 becomes 0.116. 534 becomes 4.34. And 863 becomes, 683, my mistake, becomes 6.83. So in each case, for the first 3, we move the numbers 1 place to the right. For the rest of them, we move the numbers 2 places to the right. If you need to write any corrections, pause the lesson now and return when you're ready. Okay, so our next piece of work, what we've got here is some calculations. The first one has been started for you. And what I'd like you to do is work each one out in exactly this way. I know this is a little bit unusual, but I'd like you to try and work each one out the way that they've written it down. So let's have a quick look before we start. So the first question is 0.3.0 times 0.07. And on the first line, it said, well, 0.3 is the same as 3 divided by 10. So that's where the 3 divided by 10 comes from. Multiplied by, now 0.07 is the same as 7 divided by 100. So that's where you got the 7 divided by 100. On the next line, they've just grouped the multiplying together, which is the 3 times 7, and the dividing together, which is the divided by 10 divided by 100. Now we've already looked previously in our start at what happens when you divide a number by 10 and then divide it by 100. It effectively becomes the same as dividing by 1,000. And then you go from there. So I hope that helps a bit. But I think by the time you've done a few of these, this will all make perfect sense. So pause the lesson now and return back when you're ready for your answers. Okay, so here we are, working our way through it. As I said, we got there. I explained how we got to this line. Then 3 times 7 is 21. 10 divided by 10 divided by 100 is the same as dividing by 1,000. So now to finish off, I do 21 divided by 1,000. To divide by 1,000, I have to move the numbers 3 places to the right. And if I do that, I get 0.021. Each number is moved 3 places to the right. The next one is very, very similar. Let me just put it there. Next one is very similar. We've got 0.8, which is the same as 8 divided by 10. 0.03, which is the same as 3 divided by 100. So that gives me that line. I group together my multipliers, 8 times 3, and my divisors, divided by 10 divided by 100. 8 times 3 is 24. 10 divided by 10 is 1,000. So that gives me my answer of 0.024. Because again, I've had to move the numbers in 24 3 places to the right. Then that's strange, I don't seem to have that one. Okay, let's quickly go through 0.06 times 2. So I didn't realise I hadn't done that one. Sorry about that. So we have 0.06 6 times 0.2. Okay, so that is the same as 6 divided by, well, what number do I divide 6 by to make 0.06? I divide 6 by 100 multiplied by 2. And what number do I divide 2 by to make 0.2? 10. Then I group my multipliers together. 6 times 2 divided by 100 divided by 10. So then I work my multipliers out. 6 times 2 is 12. Divided by 100 divided by 10 is going to be the same as divided by 10 divided by 100. So that's going to be 1,000. So now to finish off, I've got to do 12 divided by 1,000, which means, once again, I've got to move the numbers 3 places. Well, it starts here. I can write down my decimal point. Now I need to fill in that space, so I have to put a naught in there. So my answer is 0.012. Hope that makes sense. And then lastly, we have 0.09 times 0.89. We know why that's a 9 now. We know why it's 9 divided by 100. We know why this is 8 divided by 10. So it gives me 9 times 8 divided by 100 divided by 10, which gives me 72 divided by 1,000, which is 0.072. If you need to write any corrections, please do so now. You may need to rewind that, or you may need to play back the lesson a little bit to find the bit you need. Hope all that makes sense. And when you've done the corrections, come back, please. Okay, so here we have a long multiplication question. What I'm going to do now is just return to my one I've already written out and talk you through it. So you don't need to do anything whilst I'm talking my way through this one, but I am going to put this on the smaller board. Okay, so we have got 137 multiplied by 245. The first thing I'm going to do, as it says on the sheet, is I'm going to multiply 137 by 5. So here I've multiplied 137 by 5. So 5 7s are 35, put down a 5, carry the 3. 5 3s are 15 and 3 is 18, put down an 8, carry the 1. 5 1s are 5 and 1 is 6, so that gives me the 685. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 137 by 40. Now in order to multiply a number by 40, the way I do it is I put a 0 in the ones column and then multiply by 4. So there's my 0. 4 times 7 is 28, put down an 8, carry the 2. 4 3s are 12 and 2 is 14, put down a 4, carry a 1. And 4 1s are 4 and 1 is 5, so 5,480. In my last line here, I'm going to multiply 137 by this digit, which is 200. To multiply by 200, I put the 0 in the ones column, I put the 0 in the tens column, and then I multiply by 2. So 7 4s are 4. Sorry, 2 7s are 14, put down a 4, carry the 1. 2 3s are 6, and 1 is 7. 2 1s are 2, put down the 2. Then I've multiplied by 5, 40, and 200. So I add them all together, which gives me the answer of multiplying by 245. And if I do that, I get 33,565. If you need to replay this section to get a better understanding, I think now would be a really good time to do that. And then when you're ready, rejoin my lesson, please. Okay, so for our next task, we have some multiplications to do. You have 4 of these. I know they're quite long, but take your time, work your way through them carefully. If you feel the need to check your answers with a calculator, that's fine, but don't use a calculator to work them out in the first place. When you've worked them, I'll pause the lesson now, and when you've worked them out, rejoin me, please, for the answers. Okay, so 237 times 151. First, I'll multiply 237 by 1 to give me 237. Then I multiply it by 50 to give me 11,850. Then I multiply it by 100 to give me 23,700. When I add them all together, I get 35,787. For my next one, I'm going to multiply by 8, then by 30, then by 200. So 8 times 9 is 72, put down 2, carries 7, 8 2s are 16, and 7 is 23, so put down a 3, carry a 2, 8 3s are 24, and 2 is 26, so 2,632. Now I'm going to multiply by 30, so I put down a 0 in the ones column, and then multiply by 3. 3 9s are 27, put down a 7, carry the 2. 3 2s are 6, and 2 is 8. 3 3s are 9, so 9,870. Then lastly, I've got to multiply by 200, so I put down a 0 in the ones column, I put a 0 in the tens column, and multiply by 2. 2 9s are 18, 2 2s are 4, and 1 is 5, 2 3s are 6. And then I add my numbers together, and I get 78,302, which is a lot. Same process again for C. I'm multiplying 578 by 2 to give me 1,156. I'm multiplying 578 by 10 to give me 5,780. And I'm multiplying 578 by 300 to give me 173,400. And if I add those together, I get 180,336. And lastly, the biggest one of all, I really did start this one in the wrong place. I should have started it about here, because as you can see, we go a long way across. Same thing again, we multiply first by 5, then by 50, then by 400, and that gives me 419,965. If you need to play back the lesson to see your corrections, please do so now. Make certain that you have the correct answers written down for all of these before you go on. And then when you've done that, rejoin the lesson. Okay, a 747 plane holds 416 passengers. There are 536 of these planes in service. All of them are flying on a given day. How many passengers can they carry in total? Okay, so you've got three numbers written down there. You have to decide how many of them you need to answer this question. When you're ready, pause the lesson, please. And when you've done the calculations, return back to me, please. Okay, the best thing about this calculation is you don't need one of the numbers. 747 is 700. That is not 747. That is 747. That is the registration or the type of the aeroplane. So you can forget about that. So we have 416 passengers in each of 536 aeroplanes. So we just have to multiply. 536 by 416. So this is very, very similar to the last question we did. First we multiplied by 6, gives us 3,216. Then we multiplied by 10, gives us 5,360. Then we multiplied by 400, which gives us 214,400. And if we add all those together, that gives us 222,976 people. If you need to pause to write down a correction, please do so now and then rejoin the lesson. Okay, this next question actually just asks you're actually given some answers, but what you need to think about is how we turn one into the other. So give it your best shot and return to me when you're ready. Okay, I've written these out in the way that we did our previous examples. So I know 1.7 is 12 times 17 is 204. I know I can turn 12 into 1.2 by dividing it by 10. I know I can turn 17 into 1.7 by dividing it by 10. So 17 times 12 divided by 10 divided by 10 will give me the answer. And divided by 10 divided by 10 is actually the same as dividing by 100. So I've got to take the answer that I know of 204 and divide it by 100 to give me 2.04. The same method works on the next one. 3.4 is 34 divided by 10. 8.9 is 89 divided by 10. So 34 times 89 gives me 3026, because I'm told that. But I've got to divide that by 10 and then divide that by 10 again, which is the same as dividing by 100. Gives me 30.26. And lastly, I've written this a bit shorter because I think we understand this now. We're going to divide. We know that those two numbers multiplied together give me 989. We're going to divide that by 10 and divide that by 10 again, which is the same as dividing by 100. So that gives me 9.89. Okay, if you need to pause or look back a bit on this lesson to get any corrections, please do so now and rejoin me in your lesson as soon as you can. Okay, I've now got a question that I'm going to do. I'm going to do this in a slightly different way. The first thing I'm going to do with this one, because I don't know the answers here, the first thing I'm going to do with this one, well, I've got this written down, so I suggest we watch this and you write this one down as I'm going through it. So, the first thing that I'm going to do is perform an estimate. So, as we know, an estimate, you round the numbers to one significant figure, and then that will give me an answer. So 2.6 rounded to one significant figure is 3. 3.2 rounded to one significant figure is also 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm going to look for an answer of around about 9 to my question. So now I'm just going to ignore the fact that there's a decimal point in there and just carry out the multiplication. So I'm going to multiply first by 2, so 26 times 2 is 52. Then I'm going to multiply by 30, so I'm going to put down a 0 in the ones column and then multiply by 3. 3 6s are 18, put down an 8, carry the 1. 3 2s are 6 and 1 is 7, so that gives me my 780. I add them together, I get 832. Now I know to turn 2.6, well, it's 26 into 2.6, I divide by 10. I know to turn 32 into 3.2, I also divide by 10. So I'm dividing by 10, dividing by 10 again, which means I'm effectively dividing by 100. And 832 divided by 100 is 8.32. Now, if I look at 8.32 and my original estimate of 9, I can say they're close. They're not the same, but it's not like my answer is 0.8, and it's not like my answer is 90. So it's in a very, very similar area. It's the same order of magnitude as we call it in maths. The biggest number is in the ones column in both cases. So my estimate and this answer tie together. So my answer is pretty good. If you need to replay that, please do that now, please, and then rejoin when you're ready. Okay, so some work for you to do now. Just a set of questions. I'd like you to carry them out the same way as I've just done, and then when you're ready, well, pause the lesson now, and then when you're ready, rejoin, please. Okay, for these, I haven't actually got these written out in full, because I think we've got this method now. So I think writing it out in full is a bit silly. So what I will do this time, well, what I will do now is I will write down the estimates that you should have made as well. If we multiply these two numbers together, we get 8.14. If we did our estimate, it should have been 4 times 2, which will give us 8. For our next one, 2.5 times 4.3 gives us 10.75. Our estimate, this should be 3 times 4, which will give us 12. It's in the same order of magnitude. The two numbers are very close. 9.3 times 8.4 is 78.12. We should have done for our estimate 9. 8 times 9, I've written that down the wrong way around, which is 72, which again, same order of magnitude, very close. Or we both, one would be rounded to 80, one would be rounded to 70 to one significant figure, so that's very close. The next one, 7.22, here we'd have had to divide by 100 and then by 10, so we'd end up dividing by 1,000, which is why we have 3 numbers after the decimal point. We should have done for our estimate 7 times 3, which is 21. For our next one, the answer is 30.794, and our estimate should have been 3 times 9, which is 27. The next one, 33.128, and our estimate should have been 4 times 8, which is 32. 4.1 to 2.13 gives you 8.733, and an estimate of 4 times 2. And the last one, 19.7 times 8.25, which again we're going to end up dividing by 1,000, and that will give us an answer of 162.525, and our estimate should have been 20 times 8, which is 160. So I hope you had the same estimates as me. I hope you got the answers the same. If any of your answers don't match these, you need to go back through them and check to see where you went wrong. It shouldn't take you that long to find it. So if you need to do that now, please pause the lesson and return as soon as you can. Okay, so let's have a look at this for this question. For each part in question 12, count the number of digits after the decimal point in both numbers in the question. Do the same for your answer. What do you notice? Use your answer to part A to help you work out 3.26 times 5.12. Okay, just spend a little while going through that for me, please. And return when you're ready. Okay, so for the thing you should have noticed is that in question 12, the number of decimal places, the number of digits after the decimal point in the answer was the same as the number of decimal places in the question. So if your answer had two numbers after the decimal, if your question had two numbers after the decimal place, your answer would have two numbers after the decimal place. If it had three numbers after the decimal place, altogether in both of them, you should have three numbers after the decimal place in the answer, which is a very, very useful thing to work out. So, for example, you can say in the next question, I'm not going to work it out, I'm sure you have, but you should have exactly four numbers after the decimal place in the answer, because you've got four numbers after the decimal place in the question. And as an estimate, it's going to be round about 15. So if you're uncertain that you've got the answer to that correct, please check now. Okay, so now we come to another problem solving question. A car can travel 138 kilometers on 1 litre of petrol. How far can it travel on 8.8 litres of petrol? So please pause the video, pause the lesson, and work your way through this question now, then return to me when you're ready. Okay, so our last question today, we worked this one out. So first thing we're going to do when we work this out is we're going to forget about the decimal point. Just carry out the multiplication. So 8 times 8 is 64, put down a 4, carry the 6. 8 times 3 is 24, and 6 is 30. 8 times, so put down a 0, carry the 3. 8 times 1 is 8, and 3 is 11 that we write down, which gives us 1,104. Then I'll write down a 0 in the ones column, and I repeat the multiplication again. So I get the same numbers again in the same order, only there's a 0 behind, so that gives us 11,040. I then add the numbers together to give me 12144. At this point, I look at my question. There are 2 numbers after the decimal point in the question. I need 2 numbers after the decimal point in my answer. So I have to move the numbers 2 places to the right, which gives me 121.44. And just as a little check, I personally did a little estimate. I did 14 times 9, and as I did that, I got the answer of 126, which shows that my answer is around about in the right place. It doesn't guarantee it's right. I may have made some adding or slight multiplication errors, but it's got the right number of digits, and it's round about the right order of magnitude. So I'm pretty secure with that answer. If you haven't got that, please pause the tape, or please pause the video of the lesson now and return to me when you've written down your corrections. Okay, that completes our lesson for today. The next lesson that you'll come on to carries on with this work, so please keep in mind what we've done today, and when you return, or when you come back for the next lesson, please remember everything that we've done. Thank you very much. Goodbye.